Rise and shine, everyone. It is 6 o'clock here on your Thursday morning, your Friday Junior. Thank you for starting your day here on Sunrise. I'm Jason Hackett. Alicia has the day off. Let's get over to John for a look at our forecast this morning.
Yes.
And John, you better enjoy the cold weather while it lasts.
I know. I am trying to do all these winter activities. I'm getting excited to go on ice fishing, getting my kids out ice fishing. At least we've stabilized some ice. Here's what it looks like today. 9 degrees, a classic Minnesota January day with some flurries out there in the afternoon. We are going to miss, even though we're getting some light snow, I'm still going to call it a miss. But when I say that, just know we're still going to get snow. The bad conditions, the plowable snow, stays in southwest Minnesota, Sioux Falls, and all of Iowa. The entire state of Iowa, once again, will get this. Snow has literally gone around us because of high pressure. High pressure sitting here. You can see a decent clipper here. Quite a bit of that snow, as you track that out, it is going to go down into Iowa here today. So that's something we'll take a look at. We'll talk about, you know, can we sneak out an inch or two around the cities in your full forecast. Megan.
It is a slow morning right now on 94 eastbound in Minneapolis. There's a crash between Franklin Avenue and then Huron Boulevard. So this is the eastbound view at Riverside Avenue. We'll also show you the westbound view so you can see a little bit closer to the scene of the crash there. And then just look at that, how delayed things are getting in that area. You can see a lot of people moving pretty slow through that corridor right now, Jason.
Yeah, may want to avoid that area. All right, Megan, thank you. While the national focus is on New Hampshire in the 2024 presidential race, voting in Minnesota's presidential primary gets underway in the next 24 hours. So Cece's here now to break down everything you need to know before early voting opens. Cece.
Hi, good morning. All right, so take a look at this date right here. Mark it on your calendars. March 5th. Also known as Super Tuesday. That is when the next presidential primary is, but you don't have to wait until then to get started on voting. Tomorrow is the first day to vote early in person for the presidential primary. The last day to vote early in person will then be Monday, March 4th. You can also apply to get an absentee ballot here on the Secretary of State's website. Here it is, and really you're just putting in your county, you're putting in your address, and it's 4 simple steps. That ballot needs to be returned by mail or in person by Election Day, though, or it won't count. So if you don't want to vote early, though, you can vote at your polling place on presidential primary day. You can pre-register for that through February 13th or register at your polling place when you vote. To register at your polling place, though, remember to bring one proof of residence, like a valid Minnesota driver's license, and just know that voters must turn 18 by March 5th to vote in that primary. I also want to note that this morning at 9:30, the Secretary of State will be at the Capitol talking about election security, election worker recruitment, voter outreach programs. We'll have more info about that at KARE11.com. Jason.
All right, Cece, thank you. And sticking with politics this morning, we're just 5 days away from the Republican primary in New Hampshire, and Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis are hitting the campaign trail hard. DeSantis, who came in second in Iowa's caucus, held 2 events yesterday. He'll be back in New Hampshire tomorrow for an event. Meanwhile, Haley is polling ahead of DeSantis in New Hampshire by almost 30 points, but is still behind former President Trump. Now, all this as President Biden released a video on social media where he says he's done what the Republican candidates have not so far.
I'm still the only person to ever beat Donald Trump, and I'm looking forward to do it again for the good of this country.
The Democrats decided their first primary will be in South Carolina, which happens next month. President Biden is not allowed to campaign in New Hampshire and is not on the ballot, but there will be other Democratic candidates on the ballot, including Minnesota's Dean Phillips. And as we continue our 2024 election coverage, Chief Political Reporter John Croman will be heading to New Hampshire in the coming days. Look for live coverage on the 23rd on the GOP fight, as well as Phillips' challenge to President Biden. Well, a tight-knit community on Lake Mille Lacs is mourning the loss of one of their own. Richard Gadboy died last Friday when his truck fell through the ice on the lake. Sheriff Kyle Burton says the 80-year-old was driving a small SUV onto the lake Friday where the ice measured only about 6 inches thick. A friend found him and dragged him to shore, but sadly Gadboy died at the hospital. The sheriff says he was wearing a flotation suit when he went through. He says he hopes this tragedy serves as an important safety reminder.
Just to be careful because it has been a weird winter. And I know everybody's anxious to get out there and fish and have fun, and we want you to do those things, but we certainly don't want to have to go out and rescue people or recover bodies from water at all.
The Gadboy owned a well-known rental business called Dickies on Mille Lacs. The VFW right next door is putting together a benefit on March 9th to support his wife. Another sad story here this morning. A southwestern Minnesota family is grieving again this morning following a UTV accident earlier this month. They've now lost their second son, 11-year-old Harrison. He and two of his brothers were on a UTV when it collided with a pickup truck at an intersection. 15-year-old Will passed away earlier this month. The third brother was recently released from the hospital. A GoFundMe for the family has already raised more than $167,000. Let's take a live look from Washington, D.C. this morning, and the clock is ticking until parts of the government are set to shut down. That's unless lawmakers can pass a funding extension and get it to the president's desk. Now, they only have until the end of the day tomorrow. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says his chamber should be able to vote on and pass a stopgap measure today. But House Republicans want to address immigration first. Right now, senators are working on a bipartisan immigration deal, but the problem is getting one with enough support by the deadline.
Border, border, border. We have to secure our own border before we talk about doing anything else.
If the bill looks like some of the things that have been rumored, of course it's dead in the House because it wouldn't solve the problem.
If lawmakers can't come to terms, funds for key government agencies, including military construction, the Energy Department, and housing, will dry up. New reaction coming in this morning after an administrative law judge approved adding an ethnic studies standard in schools. We told you yesterday, Judge Eric Lipman says the Department of Education needs to rewrite a rule which would require teachers to apply lessons from the past in order to eliminate historical and contemporary injustices. Judge Lipman says the rule is unduly vague. The Roseville Area School Board director said this is a step in the right direction.
Personally, I was fine with the language as it was, but if that's all it's going to take for this to move forward, then I'm just ecstatic.
He did reject one subpart of the ethnic studies standards as being unduly vague and weak. In fact, he should have applied this reasoning to the entire rule.
In a statement, the Department of Education said it is pleased with the judge's positive ruling and it will work to clarify one technical area noted by the judge. A special floral goalie mask worn by Marc-Andre Fleury is now part of the Minnesota Historical Society's permanent collection. He defied the NHL's rules and wore it during warm-ups on the Minnesota Wild's Native American Heritage Night last month in honor of his wife, an Indigenous person of Canada. Yesterday, the artist behind the design, Cole Redhorse Taylor, shared his vision.
I knew that I wanted to do Dakota Florals to talk about like Dakota aesthetics and culture, and the fact that, you know, Fleury's, Marc-Andre Fleury's nickname is the flower, and, you know, his name means flower in French. It just all aligned really, really well. Having the language, the term Minishota Makoche on it, was just about acknowledging our language as the first language of literally this area where this, you know, where we are right now and where the wild play and practice on.
The museum purchased the mask at an auction for more than $35,000, with proceeds going towards Minnesota Wild Foundation and American Indian Family Center. Over the next few days, tens of thousands of people will head to Stillwater to see some massive sculptures made of snow. Yesterday, teams from around the world started building their creations for the World Snow Sculpting Championship. 12 teams from 8 countries will sculpt their frozen masterpieces through Saturday. Dave Junker with the competitions committee says the recent cold snap has been a big help.
Recent as last weekend, we were thinking, what's going to happen here? There's no snow on the ground. We knew we had Afton Alps coming in to make snow, but it still wasn't that cold. All of a sudden, Sunday rolls in and it starts to get cold. The snow, we started making snow fast and furious.
So Junker says about 50,000 people attended last year's championship. Judges will crown the winning sculpture on Saturday afternoon. Again,